Hello everybody, today I'm going to be showing you how to make your own custom rec room mirror, just like this one, without having to use the in-game prop that takes up 50% of your ink. Let's get right into it. Alright, so before we get started, we're going to have the area at which we're going to hold our mirror. Mine's going to be this 4x4x4 box, and it's a little sunken under the ground, but that's okay. So first what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get our maker pen out. So to do that, you go and open your watch, and you go to backpack, and then you click use on the maker pen. The next you then grab your maker pen, and then you look at the top, and then boom, there's your palette. So first what we need is we need the thing that's going to be our guy in the mirror. And for me, I'm just going to probably have, more than likely, just a couple of circles. You know? Boom. Those are circles. So if you did it like I did here, where I just have them all in the same shape, what you can do is you can turn on grid, make sure you have a lower snap position, because I have a larger one. And then you click on it, like the move or the rotate, and then you just hold, and then boom, it snaps like this. To make sure that it actually snaps perfectly, make sure you also have your rotation snap to 90, and then just hold it down, and it'll snap. Then you edit it, then you split one shape at a time. There's the hand, there's the hand. So now what we need to do is now we need to go into each one of these and make sure that they're all straight. Boom. Now what we need to do is we need to go into each one of these, and then we need to center this pivot right here. So it is right in the middle. So to do that, you select the object, click Options, and then Center Pivot on Selection. And make sure you do this with all three of these objects. So I'm going to do that with mine real quick. And I'm going to recolor my guy real quick, just so we can differentiate him from the background. I'm probably going to go more of like a yellowish. There we go. Looks pretty good. Alright. And now we can go on to setting up our circuits. So actually, before we do our circuits, I forgot one more thing about this guy over here. So what we need to do is we need to configure each part of him, and we need to give him a tag. Also make sure that its physical mode is on decoration. So the tags that we'll be adding on here are going to be H in head, or you can just type out head, that'll work. But I'm going to use H because it's easier for me to type and quicker. And then we have to click this plus, and then we'll then have the tag on the object. We're going to do that with each one of these. So this right here, this is going to be our left hand because it's going to be this hand right here. It's our left. Okay, so we're going to call this one L, or left, either one. And then this one's going to be R or right, because this is going to be our right hand. There we go. So now we have all our tags for this guy. And now we are going to start with the circuits. So the first thing we're going to do with our circuits is we are going to add a barrier here, first of all, just so we can't walk into the mirror. To do that, we are going to go to Palette, we're going to Circuits, and then we're going to scroll down until we get to Circuit Components, and we're going to scroll over until we get to Invisible Collision. And then we just have to place the invisible collision. So after this, we are then going to go to Palette again, scroll down, Circuit Components, and we're going to scroll over until we get to Trigger Volume. So there's two things that you can do with this. I will do both, and you can choose either one. One will use more circuits, and then the other will use less circuits. So now that I have my trigger volume here, what we are going to do is we are going to actually start doing circuits now. So first what we're going to do is we are going to use some shortcuts and stuff here. So normally in the palette, right? You know, circuits again. Or, to make it easier, you could go to the search, circuits, commonly used, and then event receiver. I would recommend either having your grid snap on, and having it at a lower snap position like 5. Or once you place your first circuit, you can then switch over to surface snapping. So you can then do stuff like this. So now we are going to configure this event receiver. Go to chip settings. And then we're going to click this bar. And we're going to scroll down until we hit update 30 Hertz. Now I'm in a beta room, so there's going to be a lot more stuff for me on this list than there will be for you. So you just have to scroll down here and then just hit update 30 Hertz. Next, what you need is you need a if and then this is kind of where we start getting those two parts here. Two separate options with the trigger volume. So I'm going to do the easier one first, and then I'll do the more complicated one later. More complicated one does take up a slight bit more CPU, but it does make it smoother, which I quite like. But I think sometimes the one I'm about to do here will be a bit glitchier sometimes. So first what we're going to do is for this false, like the condition here, we are going to do greater than, wire it here. Okay, make sure it's about there. And we are then going to do list get count, wired to A, and then make sure you have this result wired to the if condition. You will hear that error for now. So we're going to wire this white list input up to the players on here. So as of right now, there's 0 players, so that's going to come out as false. Then I come in here, and now it appears as true, because there's 1 player in here right now, which is exactly what we want. So, sadly, this version won't work with multiple players in your room. It will only work with 1. But we could probably make it so it can work for multiple, but you will need beta for that. I'll explain why later. So next what we're going to need to do is we will need to go to Object, while also still being in Circuits, and then go to Physics, and then go to Set Transform. Wire that to the then, and then we're going to need 3 of these. There we go. Now for the else, we're going to need a set position. Actually, let's unwire this event receiver just so we don't hear that error. We're going to wire all these 3. There we go. So, for these set positions down here, what we are going to do is we are going to get a vector create. So still in circuits over here in the palette, we're going to move over to math, vector, and then find the vector create right here. We're going to put that about here. So do not change these blue values on here, and wire the vector 3 up to the positions on all 3 of these set positions. So this is for when we are not currently in front of the mirror. And what this will do is we'll reset the position of all that guy's parts to the middle of the map, which is about here. So to make it so we can actually do this, we're going to set these targets. So the target is going to be that guy over there. So to do that, we are going to need to go to Object again. We're then going to have to go to Rec Room Object, and then Tag, and then Rec Room Object get first with Tag. We're going to be using this quite a few times, so let's just have this over here on the side. Then let's just wire this in order into each one of these. And there we go. Now we still don't have a target, and that's because we have to specify what tag we want the object to be. So for the first tag, that is going to be our head. So for me, that tag is H. Then for the second tag, that's going to be our right hand, which for me, the tag is R. And then for the third one, it's the left hand, which for me is L. And just to make sure that all this does work, we're going to have to configure this guy's parts over here. And scroll all the way down and turn on Can Modify with Circuits. What this will do is it will allow us to set the rotation of the object and the position. So now that we have that, we can wire this back up. Ah, dang. What happened? Why is that happening? I might not have configured a tag right. Or maybe I didn't add something. Oh, I called it right. Oh, my bad. There we go. Small problem there. Whoops. So now that should work. There we go. And now if we go to the middle here. Ah, yeah, there he is. Boom. Yep, so he sets its position right to the middle. And if I go here, it's going to be an error. Because we don't have that set up yet here, as you can see. Because there's no inputs, so there's going to be an error. So let's unwire that again. So now we can work with this stuff. So, like we did down here with the set positions, we're going to have to set the targets to these, to the guy's parts. And we'll do it in the exact same order that we did before. There we go. Now what we're going to do is we are going to do the position first, then we're going to go into the rotation. So for the position, we are going to need to go to Math, while still being in Circuits, go to Vector, and then we're going to need a Vector Create. Or you can just clone this Vector Create right here. We're going to need 3 different versions of this for the 3 different parts that we have. And then we're then going to need an add. And we're going to add that to all of these. And then we're then going to need 2 multiplies. One of them we're not going to need right now, though. Actually, here. Let's start this from the beginning first. So before we do that, let's actually set the tag. Actually, no, we don't need to set the tag for that. We're first going to go to Player, scroll down till we get to Get Local Player. We're going to have that over here. Then we're going to scroll over to Player again, because I accidentally clicked out of it. Physics, left hand position, and right hand position. There we go. We are then going to go back to just Circuits, then Math, Vector, and Vector 3 Split. We're going to need this 3 times. And there we go. So, before we do this, before we get any further, what I would like you to do is to get out a vector component. going to go to grid, and we're going to point this towards our mirror. Okay? Now, we're going to hover our wire over the vector tab here. So the three numbers here, that is x, y, and z. What we want is we want to see what number is equal to 1. This one here, this is 1. Remember that. Okay, so for me, the 1 is x. For you, it might either be z, or maybe even if you're doing this in a weird way, y. But I have a feeling either this or this are probably going to be 1. So remember, whatever your number was, whether it's x or y. So for me, mine was x. So what we're going to do is we are going to obviously wire all these together. Oh, right, I'm dumb. We have to get the position of the local player first, because I'm so smart. Yup. So to do that, we are going to go to physics. Then we're going to go to just normal physics, not player or anything. So after we do that, we're then going to go to get position. And then there it is. I'm going to wire that up to here. Now, we're going to wire all of these up to those, except for the one that had the 1 on the vector component down there. So for me, that was x, so I'm not going to wire up the x's on any of these. But instead, I will wire up the y's and the z's. For you, if your z was 1, you would wire x, and you would not wire z. So I'm going to move these over a little bit more, just so we have a bit more space. So now what we're going to do is we're going to multiply all of these x's by -1. So we're going to go to math, scalar, and then multiply. I'm going to wire it up to here, here, and here. And then in the second value, where it says 0, we're going to put a -1 in each of these. There we go. So now what that does is this sets the position of the guy down there to the opposite side of the plane. So basically, if I were standing here, my other guy would be in front of me now. If I weren't to do that, he would be inside of me. He'd be right on top of me. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to get an add right up to each one of these multiplies. We're going to move it out a little bit. Okay, make sure they're all wired up. Then we're going to get the position of our invisible barrier, which makes sure that it is only on here, not covering the whole thing. Remember that. Okay? We're going to wire this up to the get position. We're going to get a vector 3 split. And for whatever your number that was 1 on the vector component down there, so for me that was x. We're going to multiply its x by 2, and then we're going to add it to this number right here. So I'm going to multiply this by 2, and then I'm going to add it to all of these. So I think now we can probably move this over a bit more. So seems pretty good. Yeah, okay. So now next, if I'm right, I think now we have to wire all these up to here. If this doesn't work later, I'll figure out the problem. So next, after we're going to do this, is now we are going to start working on the rotation. So for the rotation, which we're going to have up in this area up here, is first we're going to get the player's camera rotation. So first we're going to go to circuits, again, player, physics, and then get camera rotation, or get local camera rotation. Remove this up here. The next, we're going to get the rotation for the left and right hand. There we go. Now they have rotations of each hand, which lets us see, well, it's rotation, obviously. Now we're going to go back to circuits, and we're going to go math, quaternion, and then we're going to go to Euler angles. Not Euler angles create, because that will switch it back to this, but Euler angles, because that gives us a vector 3, which is a lot easier to work with. We're going to want that for each one of these. Next, what we need is we need to go back to just math, not to circuits. Then we go to vector 3, vector 3 split, and we have one of these on each one. After that, we go back to math again, and click add. Have an add on each one of these. I'm going to have a bit more compact just so we can fit more. I probably have a bit more room than I did here. So I'll move them a bit more like this. And then clone this over to the other ones. And then wire them up. Now on each one of these zeros, you want to type in 180 or 180. So after you do that, you're going to go to palette again. Then we're then going to go to scalar. And go to multiply. And we're going to wire them up to each one of these again. Make sure you have them compact like you did before, or like I did. Just so we can fit more. So it's not all messy. There we go. Wire them up, and then in all the zeros, type in -1. Just like this. Alright, so after all those, you then go to math again, vector create again, or you can just clone the one that you have down here, or over here. And you just want 1 on each one of these. There we go. After you do that, you then go back to Math, Quaternion, and then create Euler angles. And then you then wire this value on each one of these to the rotation down here. There we go. So now if we wire this back up, we test it, it works. Obviously I have multiple players here, so it's going to be a bit buggy for me. As you can see, the rotation works pretty well. You know? So yeah, it's working. So before doing this alternate method, I would recommend doing first the original method, just so we can then delete and then add on to what we are going to do here. Because we're going to be using pretty much all the same circuits, except for these two here. So before we get started, unwire our event receiver, just so this isn't running and having any glitches or anything while we're doing our circuits. We'll delete the greater than, and then the list get count. We're then going to go to palette. We're then going to just go to circuits, and then we're going to go to logic. We're going to click and. We're going to have that go here. Now we're going to go to configure, and you want to configure the and so it has 6 inputs. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we want to figure out how big our mirror is going in depth-wise, length-wise, and height-wise. So mine is 4 by 4 meters. So, and the pivot is directly in the middle. So we're going to divide each number by 2. So 4 divided by 4 is 2, obviously. So for me, I'm going to have my number be slightly less than 2 meters. Probably about 0.10 less, so probably 1.9 is going to be what I'm going to be using. So first, for these first 3 here, we're going to have to go to logic again. We're going to do greater than or equal to. And then we're also going to have less than or equal to. I'm going to wire all these up. I'm also going to group them up so we can actually differentiate them a bit better. So what you would want to do before doing this is you want to figure out where your points are on here. So for me, it is probably going to be, let's see. For me, it's probably going to be up here and then over here, if I'm correct. If not, it should be over here and over here. Let me double check this real quick. Actually, we can double check this while doing our code. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to move these over so we have a bit more space over here, and so we don't get too far out from our main code. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to math. Why did I do that? Math, scalar, and we're going to go to subtract. We're going to have that over here for now. What we are going to do is we are going to subtract our player's position, if I can wire it. Subtract our player's position by the mirror's position, or the mirror's trigger volume. So now that we have that, we are going to go here. We're going to have our head be right in this corner. We want all the numbers to be positive. Right now, they're all positive. So now if I go down here, they should all be negative. And they're all negative. So my corners are going to be here and here. Because what you want to do is you want to find your corners that are all positive and all negative. Now, you can mark them if you're going to forget them, but I should be fine. I should be able to remember them. So what we are going to do is, now that we have this, is we are going to probably move this into a better position. I don't know. I guess it's fine where it is. But what we're going to do is we are going to use one of our other vector splits, probably this one. We'll wire this to our subtract. Then we are going to wire this to here. Nope, not there. Here, 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 and here. So we're going to wire these up so it goes into both of these. Okay? So what we want oh, I could be doing this wrong. Yeah, I'm doing this wrong. Whoops, my bad. So now that I have this, I don't think we need these two things anymore. Now what we need is vector split. Again, I'm done. Vector split. Then we're going to need some adds, specifically 3. 1, 2, 3. Make sure they're all wired up. And then we're going to type in whatever our numbers are for here. Okay. So my x going this way is going to be 1.9, because remember I'm shortening it. But I guess for simplicity's sake, I'm going to do it 2. So 2 going this way. And then 2 going this way. And then 2 going this way. So now what we have is, now we have this corner. We're detecting this corner right here, basically. So now for the other corner, which is that one for me, we're going to want to either subtract by 2, or we're going to add by -2. Or whatever your values are. So for me, it's going to be -2, since I'm still using the add, because it's simpler just to clone stuff. Okay, there we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to wire all these up to here. So before we do that, we're going to wire all of these A's up to our values up to that are up in the vector 3 split for our player's position. So for our x, it's going to go to the first one of both of these. For y, it's going to go to the second one of both of these. And then for a z, it's going to go to the third one of both of these. So I have this a little flip-flopped. So for our adds up here that are the positive numbers, those are going to go down to the less thans. And then for our negative numbers, they're going to go up to the greater thans. So now, if we wire this up, uh-oh, we're getting an error. Oh, I forgot to wire this. There we go. So as you can see, it does take up a little bit more CPU. But if I walk in here, it does still work. Still works very well. And another thing that we can do with this is if we lower our numbers here, is that our guy will now disappear earlier. Well, everyone, so that's how you make a mirror in Rec Room without using the Rec Room prop that takes about 50% of your ink. I sure hope you all enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope you all have a nice day.